Most forests quiet down at night. This one wakes up. Its trees twist like old scars, shaped by storms long forgotten, and the air feels wrong thicker, heavier, like something unseen is always watching. Even at noon, the sunlight barely reaches the floor, choked off by tangled limbs above. Locals call it cursed, a place where even birds refuse to sing. The deeper you go, the less the world follows. Sound vanishes, time stretches. The path back never looks the same. And always, just behind the trees, something seems to move when you don't look. They say the Skull Walker lives there. Not a man, not quite a spirit. Born of betrayal, it wanders in silence, faceless but aware, a guardian of pain and secrets buried in roots. It doesn't hunt. It waits. His description was well known. A towering figure, his cloak seemingly woven from smoke, drifting and curling around him. His face was hidden by a skull-like mask that glowed faintly in the dark, lending him an eerie, otherworldly presence. His steps were slow and deliberate, each marked by the faint crunch of bones beneath his feet. By night, he prowled unseen trails, paths that revealed themselves only to him, leading to his hidden lair deep within the Foresta place, so overgrown that even the sun's rays feared to tread. Some said he was the restless spirit of a man wronged, cursed to roam the forest until his soul could find peace. Others thought him a demon, conjured long ago by forbidden rituals, bound to serve as guardian of the forest's ancient mysteries. Regardless of the tale, he inspired only fear. On a chilly, moonless night, I, Ethan, a young hunter known in the village for my bravery and strength, prepared to enter. Tales of hidden treasures, chests of gold and jewels, rumored to lie buried under the roots of the oldest trees, had reached my ears. Though the villagers warned me of the Skull Walker, I dismissed their fears as mere superstition. Armed with my lantern, bow, and hunting knife, I stepped into the woods, my footsteps muffled by the thick, damp earth. The air grew colder as I walked, and I felt the weight of the forest pressing down on me, as if the trees themselves were watching. My lantern cast a dim light, barely illuminating the path before me, and I began to feel an unease settling over me, a nagging sense that I was not alone. The forest grew denser, the branches overhead weaving into a canopy that blocked even the faint light of the stars. Shadows seemed to shift at the edge of my vision, and strange, unidentifiable sounds echoed in the distance. Yet, pride drove me forward, deeper into the darkness. Then, just as I thought I'd imagined the Skull Walker's existence, I saw him. A tall, dark figure, silhouetted against the blackness of the trees. My heart stopped, a chill racing down my spine. It was him, the Skull Walker. The figure turned, his movements slow and measured. In the faint glow of my lantern, the Skull Walker's face appeared, partially obscured by a mask of bone. Empty eyes glowed faintly, casting an unearthly light. He stood in silence, his presence so overwhelming that I felt as though the air itself had grown thick and heavy. For a moment, neither moved, and I felt paralyzed, as though gaze had rooted me to the ground. Without a word, the Skull Walker began to move, each step echoing with the sickening crunch of bones. My heart hammered in my chest as I watched him glide through the trees, moving effortlessly through the tangled roots and dense underbrush. Against my better judgment, I felt an urge to follow. Perhaps it was curiosity, or perhaps the dark magic of the forest had already begun to weave its spell around me. He led me to a clearing bathed in moonlight. A circle of trees twisted and blackened, their branches stretching skyward like fingers frozen in a silent scream. In the center of the clearing lay a mound of skulls, carefully arranged, each one staring hollow-eyed into the darkness. My skin prickled with dread as I realized the truth. I had stumbled upon the Skull Walker's lair. I watched, unable to tear my gaze away, as he knelt before the mound, a skeletal hand brushing over the surface of a skull as he murmured an incantation in a language I did not recognize. The words hung in the air, thick with power, and the very trees seemed to lean in, bearing witness to the dark ritual. Shadows danced around him, twisting and writhing in shapes that defied logic, and I felt a terror so profound that I could barely breathe. The Skull Walker's gaze shifted, his eyes meeting mine with a look that pierced through me, reaching down to the core of my soul. In that moment, I understood. I had ventured too far, seen too much, and there would be no mercy. With a scream that shattered the silence, I turned and fled, stumbling through the underbrush in a desperate attempt to escape. The forest twisted around me, branches clawing as shadows slithered just out of sight. Bones crunched behind me, louder with every step. I ran until I collapsed at the village's edge, breathless and shaking, haunted by the image of the Skull Walker and its mound of skulls. From that night on, the man I had been ceased to exist. Laughter no longer found me. I kept to myself, flinching at the mere mention of the forest. My only solace was an old amulet, a charm my grandmother once pressed into my hand, whispering of its power to ward off evil. Yet even as I clutched it by the fire, peace eluded me. The Skull Walker's gaze lingered, a shadow in my mind that no light could chase away. The village changed with me. Fear spread, and the once familiar forest was abandoned. Old Man Gregor revealed the truth. Long ago, our ancestors summoned dark beings for power. The Skull Walker was their curse, a spirit doomed to haunt the forest and feed on lost souls. And so, a decision was made. A group of us, though I say us, I remained on the outskirts, watching, too broken to join, gathered to face the nightmare. At their head stood Father Matthias, a man of iron faith and fierce conviction. He was no warrior. None of them were. Farmers, craftsmen, simple folk armed with torches, blessed weapons, and charms offered by trembling hands. I watched as they marched toward the forest, their courage a fragile thing in the face of what awaited them. The forest swallowed them, as it had swallowed me. Familiar paths twisted into mockeries of themselves. Roots curled like ancient fingers. The air grew cold, their breath fogging before them as unnatural silence pressed in. Even the forest's usual songs had abandoned them. Hours passed, though it felt like days until they reached the clearing. I was not there, but I have seen it 1,000 times in my mind, in my dreams. The Skull Walker waited, draped in shadows that devoured the light. His skeletal mask glowed with a sickly light, empty sockets gazing into the souls of those who dared face him. Around him, the mound of skulls loomed, each bone a silent testament to his hunger. Father Matthias raised his crucifix high, voice trembling but unyielding, commanding the creature to leave. The others followed, torches flaring, voices weaving prayers into the air. For a moment, I dared to hope. The Skull Walker laughed. It was not a sound meant for human ears. It vibrated through the ground, through bone, through the fragile walls of courage. Shadows rose at his command, coiling, writhing, draining the warmth from flesh and soul alike. One by one, those brave souls fell, their torches snuffed, their bodies claimed by darkness. Only Father Matthias remained. He stood his ground, a lone figure of defiance as the forest closed in. The crucifix in his grasp glowed, faint at first, then brighter, pushing back the shadows, inch by inch. His voice rang out, not with the power of a warrior, but with the quiet, relentless strength of faith. The Skull Walker paused, tilting his head in what I can only imagine was curiosity or mockery. With a final cry, Father Matthias thrust the crucifix forward. Light exploded. It was as if the very sun had burst within that cursed clearing. Shadows screamed, twisting and dissolving into nothing. The Skull Walker's form wavered, his cloak of darkness billowing like smoke caught in a storm. With a guttural growl, he vanished, leaving only a lingering trace of cold that slowly faded into the earth. When the light died, Father Matthias stood alone. His hair had turned snow white. His face was lined with the weight of horrors only he had faced and survived. Around him, the mound of skulls lay scattered, their grim pattern undone. He returned to us, not as a savior, but as a man forever marked. The village hailed him as a hero, but those who met his gaze saw the truth. The forest remained. Its darkness receded, but never truly gone. In time, life crept back to normal, though no one entered those woods at night. And sometimes, when the night is deep and the fire burns low, I wonder if, like Father Matthias, I too left a part of myself in that cursed clearing.
And moral of the story is, evil often wears a familiar face. Beware of what follows you in the dark, for not all who walk beside you are alive.